So, until there's more movement on the budget being signed, it's not a lot of updates from our last meeting. But I think I'll talk for a few minutes and then kind of pause if people have questions. And also would love to hear from anyone else who has any other information about where we are and how close we are. We are at the tail end of this what felt like a very long journey over the last, five months or so, 5 or 6 months. So let's dive in. So as I'm looking at this agenda, I'm realizing I actually did not put a slide in for the action step. I think I put a social media slide in, but I will mention that even though I don't have a slide for it. So the main budget bill passed the legislature. Last time we met, we talked about what was in the legislature's mutually, agreed upon budget plan, and then they take the Senate and the Assembly, they take the plan that they've agreed on, and it informs an actual bill, a budget bill. And the budget bills are really different than like a policy bill. It's a lot of numbers versus a lot of letters. And it's actually really hard to read. It's hard to understand where everything's going because there's not a lot of like supplementary content with it. And so there are other bills that provide that supplementary content. But we do have that first sort of budget bill with all those important numbers. And that has passed the legislature. I'll explain on the next slide sort of what that means. It doesn't mean we're at the end. It doesn't mean it's final, but it looks really good to have. It's a great sign to have like the things that are important to people and that are important budget investments to be in this budget bill, because if they're not in the budget bill, it's dead in the water. But if they are in the budget bill, it's still not final. So we're not going to like pop the champagne yet, but we're gonna kind of keep thinking good thoughts and keep sending good energy. We're really close here. So it did reject, really most of the cuts that I think a lot of this, group, this sector, were concerned about, and including the Housing Navigation and Maintenance Program. As everyone knows, I think, we stopped advocating for the SILP housing supplement when there was a really strong compromise made within the new rate structure being proposed. And so that's sort of that's sort of now it's attached to this very big effort moving forward. And so it's a little more complex than just sort of a bullet point of something preserved. But, it's the rates will move forward in some form. And it's a matter of the devil's in the details of what goes into that rate structure. And then also just the trigger that was placed on it by the governor, whether or not that will be removed in the final budget. So, so the cuts that were, rejected several cuts bulleted there. It also appropriated additional funding for youth homelessness within the larger homelessness program that has been put forth each year for a number of years, and keeps with this reform to the Cal Grant program, but advances sort of a phased-in approach to deal with the deficit. So I know we looked at this information last week, but so that was sort of a plan. It is now a bill that has passed the legislature. So what that means, they passed, it was the main budget bill, AB 107 was what you were just looking at in the previous slide, sort of content-wise. It passed on June 13th, meaning the committee, in Florida, like it passed the legislature. It was presented to the governor on the 15th. And, it represents the legislature's priorities in their negotiations with the governor. The legislature is like, we're solid on this. The governor, we don't know yet. So he has to sign this bill by the 27th based on the timing that it was given to him. And, he can, once he signs it, it's still not the final budget, because then after that, there will probably be continued negotiations. And then once those negotiations happen, there will likely be what they call like a budget bill junior. And I know the icons are a little silly. I have a baby because it's junior and it's a little silly, but so budget bill junior, and it'll amend the main budget bill. So even if something appears in that budget bill, it can change in this amended Budget Bill Junior, right? So that's why we want to be really encouraged by what we're seeing. We don't want to like spike the ball on like, yeah, we got it, because things can change still. We still need to send the governor a message that these are important things. So we're almost there, but not quite. Once they get those negotiations done, the legislature will pass a Budget Bill Junior, and then the governor then, will ultimately sign that Budget Bill Junior. He has 12 days within the time he receives it, and it's published publicly to sign. And when he signs these bills, he can do line item vetoes. It's not common, but he does have that authority to do that. And if that happens, then it kind of goes back to the legislature that could possibly try to veto his vetoes by I think a 2/3 majority in each house to do that. So, these are more rare things, but again, we just never want to call it final until it's really final, right? So then moving on to this last phase. So this Budget Bill Junior, there was a lot of talk about things wrapping up much earlier. If you recall, we were like, it's happening, it's wrapping up. And they're like, okay, negotiations are slowing down a little bit. So this these negotiations in this like center box are, we could see a Budget Bill Junior, published very soon. But we just don't know the exact timing, or I don't know the exact timing. After that happens and the numbers are final, because together with these bills together, that'll be the final budget. You'll have to cross-reference. You'll look at what's in the first one and what's in the second one. Make sure, does the second one amend parts of the first one that you're looking at, but that will be final. We'll then go into a place where omnibus bills are passed, which are called more commonly like budget trailer bills, and they're called budget trailer bills because they come right after the budget. So there's a trailer icon. Okay. So budget trailer bills, that's where the words are. That's all the content. So what are the changes in law that need to happen to implement the budget? So it's where all the details, they're a little easier to sift through. It's where all the details will be on, how the money's being spent, what it's really for. And that'll likely continue into early July. It can stretch further. And there's usually a budget trailer bill, in different areas. So there will be like a human services budget trailer bill. There will be an education budget trailer bill. There will be several of them. So, this process is sort of like you things kind of get final and you get excited, but then there's like more information. So we really are looking at July for having the full picture. But we will know whether there's good news, sort of finalized good news, very soon, like by the end of June, really. So I just want to make sure everyone's like clear on what's going on, because I know it's been a long process and there's a lot of like almost like false finals where you're like, oh, something passed. And it's like, well, but it still has to be signed by the governor. And it gets really confusing. So this is sort of a simplified version of what's going on. But I'll pause there and see if anyone has any intel on like when some of these things are happening that I'm not totally clear on, if anyone has any closer, intel, or if anyone has questions. I don't know if like either Amanda Kirchner or Miller McKinney, if either Amanda has information. And I'm just looking around who's on the call.
I wish I did, but we were just talking about this about an hour ago, and we've got no updates other than that they had canceled the most recent budget hearing.
All right. Well, there you have it.
Wondering, just thinking how saintly legislators are, because this is dizzying and would make me crazy. And thanks to you, Simone, and all the other policy leaders on this call, because wow.
Well, it takes a village, it takes a coalition. I mean, so many people did so many things that we always say, like, we never know what will tip it, It could be one thing, it could be 100 things, but we just have to do everything collectively and know that we did everything we could as a coalition and hopefully got the job done. Like leave no stone unturned. So, I mean, I think, I really appreciate everyone who's like stuck with this on top of what, most people on this coalition are direct service, and you're doing your like quote unquote day job or maybe a night job. You're doing that work. And then this is like on top of that. So, especially people who sort of like, you're working in direct service, you're working with young people, you're managing programs, like just really appreciate everyone being like this being such a great group effort. And I know that it's like hurry up and wait is sort of what it feels like, but we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and the light's looking good. Like we're in the budget, in the legislature's budget, and that's huge. So fingers crossed. I'm going to just, one thing that I'll say, I'll advance to this slide, but then I meant to slip in an actual action slide, which is probably the most important one. But this sort of explains what the action is on the social media. At this point, I think it's, turning toward the governor and saying, kind of, let's make this final. We like what the legislature's put forth. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's not make too many changes there. So just really continuing to send the message that we are very happy to see that, whatever programs everyone here is advocating for, whether it's the housing navigation program or it's that plus 3 other programs, that those are preserved, and that we want to keep, these investments in the final budget, meaning, don't amend them out, Budget Bill Junior, which I don't expect to see housing navigation and maintenance program like, I don't think that's going to change. I want JC thing, but that's not something I expect. But again, we just can never bank on things that are not promises. So we won't. But so this is a social media post. And in terms of kind of other action, I'll put it in the chat, but we had, and forgive me because I'm not a great multitasker. So when I'm trying to find something on my computer, start talking really slowly. But we had a Google sheet that I'm going to pull up that had the legislature and the governor, sort of things that you could do to contact them. At this point, I suggest sort of turning your attention to the governor. I'll put it in the chat. Budget defense. Here we go. And people can, again, if you haven't done this yet, email or call. And send that message to him that way. So that's in the chat. And I'm seeing that people have been putting things in the chat that I have not seen. So let me scroll real quick. Oh, Amanda, thank you. Same news on our end. Thank you, Mara, for appreciating the icons. Okay, so I didn't miss anything big. Yeah, so this is basically, I know we're short today. It's 2:14, but I don't think anyone will turn away extra time that they didn't bank on having. So I'll pause again for questions or comments. And then once we're done with that, we can end. And if anything happens, because, the luck of the draw, like something will happen right after we get off the call, right? If anything happens in the near future, like before, I think it'll definitely happen before the next coalition meeting, we'll reach out, and then maybe we'll schedule like an unscheduled meeting, just to update people, but we'll definitely reach out and keep people updated via email. Mara?
So if we already called the governor, is this a different call now that AB 107 has passed, or that's in one call was enough?
No, I think I don't think you have to call with the same information, I think, but I know a lot of people maybe didn't get to that, or, so if you haven't done that yet, this is a great time to communicate the importance of this program and of any other programs that you care about. Oh, Vlada, you said, have you heard anything about the Bringing Families Home budget? Yeah, so I should pull up the exact number so I don't go off memory. So it was an improvement from what the governor proposed, but there still is a partial cut. I think it went from 80 to 40. Let me, you know what, instead of trying to search for that when I'm on here, Vlada, I'll follow up and give you the exact info, but it is, I think, it's not like a full restoration, I think, in the way that maybe other programs were, but it was not, it was like a revised adjustment from what the governor had originally proposed. So I'll send that to you. Or if anyone on the phone like has in their head exactly what Bringing Families Home is looking like, feel free to chime in. All right, any other questions or thoughts? Great. Well, we'll be in touch. You know, we're just waiting to hear things, and we're checking I'm checking the internet every day, the webpage to see what the status is of the budget bill. So I'll let people know as soon as we hear anything. And again, thanks everybody for like just sticking with it and doing everything that you're doing. Really appreciate it. All right. Have a good rest of the week. Bye-bye.